Imagine flying over a city so symmetrical it looks like it was drawn with a compass. Wide boulevards slice across perfect grids. Gleaming towers rise from spotless plazas. From above, it's breathtaking with the kind of order only human ambition could build. However, it looks completely different after zooming in. On the ground, the streets are quiet and the plazas are empty. The perfection that looked so beautiful from the sky suddenly feels lifeless. The dream city works on paper, but not for the people living in it. Across the world, we've tried again and again to design utopias. Cities that would erase the chaos of ordinary life while being efficient, clean, and flawless. From Brasília's modernist geometry to Songdo's futuristic smart systems and Masdar's eco-tech ambition, each promised to be a glimpse of humanity's perfect future. But something went wrong. Instead of thriving, these cities became monuments to how control can backfire, how beauty can feel empty, and how a city built for perfection can end up pushing people away. This is the paradox of the planned paradise. Why the cities we engineered to be ideal so often end up feeling inhuman. In this deep dive, we'll travel from mid-century modernist capitals like Brasília and Canberra to the futuristic experiments of Songdo and Masdar City, exploring how these grand visions of order, technology, and sustainability fell apart. And by the end, we'll uncover what these failures reveal about what truly makes a city work. Brasília, Brazil. In 1956, Brazil did something radical. It decided to move its capital away from crowded coastal cities and build a brand new one in the center of the country, a city of the future, built from scratch. The design competition was won by Lucio Costa, with architecture by the legendary Oscar Niemeyer. The result was Brasília, a city shaped like an airplane, its wings spreading across the savannah. Each part of it was symbolic. The body of the plane held government buildings with sleek white curving monuments of concrete and glass. The wings were residential zones, perfectly separated into sectors: housing, commerce, recreation, and administration. It was an architect's dream, and at first it was seen as a masterpiece and a symbol of national progress. But then people moved in, and that's when the problems began. Brasília was built for cars, not for people. Its vast open spaces, while beautiful from the air, made walking anywhere nearly impossible. Neighborhoods were divided by wide highways, and zoning laws separated homes from workplaces and shops. The city's logic made daily life inconvenient. This resulted in a capital that looked stunning on postcards but felt empty on the ground. The rich lived comfortably in the wings, while workers were pushed to unplanned satellite towns far away. The utopia of equality quickly became a city of segregation. At this point, Brasília had achieved perfection in design, but lost touch with humanity. Canberra, Australia. Across the ocean, another perfect city took shape decades later in Australia. Canberra was born out of compromise. In the early 1900s, Australia needed a capital, but Sydney and Melbourne were locked in rivalry. So the government decided to build a new city, halfway between them, a blank canvas. The design competition was won by American architect Walter Burley Griffin, who imagined a garden city of balance and beauty, sweeping avenues, geometric layouts, and abundant green space. It was calm, rational, and elegant, but there was just one problem. It didn't feel alive. Canberra grew into one of the most meticulously planned cities on Earth, yet it's often described as sterile. Its population is mostly government workers. Shops close early, streets empty out at night, and despite its scenic lake and modern architecture, locals and visitors alike often say it feels soulless. The city works, but there's a strange silence to it, a reminder that cities need more than design to feel human. Both Brasília and Canberra were built from noble intentions, to symbolize unity, progress, and a better society. But both became proof that order doesn't equal livability. When you design a city as a blueprint, you erase the very thing that makes cities thrive: people's unpredictability. Real cities grow organically. They evolve. They make room for chaos, for narrow streets, hidden cafes, street vendors, kids playing soccer in alleyways. Planned cities often forget all of that. They replace spontaneity with symmetry, and when that happens, they lose their pulse. Urban thinker Jane Jacobs saw this coming decades ago. In her 1961 book, The Death and Life of Great American Cities, she warned that cities designed by planners instead of being lived by people would fail. Now, many cities fail because as soon as the 21st century arrived, we decided to try again. This time with smarter tools, greener energy, and far more money. And the result? Futuristic cities that promised perfection and ended up hauntingly empty. Before we step into those futuristic failures, let's pause on one uncomfortable truth. Every attempt to build a perfect city starts with good intentions, including cleaner air, better housing, and smarter design. But at its core, it's always about controlling how people move, where they live, and how they interact. And while that might sound efficient, it often suffocates the organic chaos that gives cities their soul. In Brasília, people joke that the city is best viewed from a helicopter. In Canberra, locals call it a good place to raise kids, but not to live. Both cities look flawless on paper. Both function smoothly on a technical level. But both lack the spontaneous joy that defines great cities, the little imperfections that make us feel connected. So what happens when we take that same dream and that same obsession with control and give it 21st century technology, massive budgets, and AI-powered precision? We get cities like Songdo in South Korea and Masdar City in the UAE. Both promise to be models for the future and perfection, but ended up proving again that perfection doesn't work. In the 20th century, architects tried to design perfection with concrete and geometry, but in the 21st century, perfection got an upgrade. Now the dream had a new name: the smart city. Artificial intelligence, automation, and renewable energy. We believe technology could finally fix what humans never could. And around the world, governments and corporations poured billions into creating the cities of tomorrow. Every light, every street, and every breath were controlled by data. But as always, behind the dream of perfection, a familiar silence was waiting. Songdo, South Korea. Just outside Seoul, on reclaimed land by the Yellow Sea, lies Songdo International Business District. One of the most ambitious urban experiments ever attempted. Built at a massive cost of $40 billion, Songdo is designed to be the world's first fully smart city. Every building is connected to a central network. Waste is sucked through underground vacuum tubes with no garbage trucks needed. Sensors monitor everything, from traffic flow to air quality to how much energy each apartment uses. Generally, it's flawless. Developers promised that Songdo would become the new international hub of Asia, a place where people would live, work, and innovate in perfect harmony. But the city told a different story. Walk through Songdo and it's completely quiet. The roads are wide, the buildings gleam, but there's almost nobody there. Residents describe it as living in an airport terminal that's clean and functional, but emotionally shallow. Despite its high-tech infrastructure, Songdo never became the bustling hub it was meant to be because people don't move to cities just for infrastructure. They move for opportunity, culture, and community. Songdo tried to import these things, but culture isn't something you can engineer. Even after more than a decade, much of the city remains underpopulated. Many towers stand half empty, and local businesses struggle to survive because there simply aren't enough people walking by. The irony is that Songdo was built to eliminate inefficiency, and in doing so, it eliminated life. The problem with smart cities isn't technology, it's the assumption that human life can be optimized like software. Urban life depends on small inconveniences that lead to interaction. Crowded cafes, noisy markets, spontaneous street performers. These are the things algorithms can't predict. Songdo tried to create a flawless environment, but in doing so, it removed the unpredictability that gives a city its soul. But just as Songdo was struggling to fill its empty streets, another grand experiment was rising out of the desert. A city with zero emissions, zero cars, and zero waste. The ultimate eco-utopia. This is Masdar City. In 2006, the United Arab Emirates announced something incredible. They were going to build the world's first carbon-neutral city. A city powered entirely by renewable energy, where no car engines could roar, no emissions could cloud the air. They called it Masdar City. Designed by Foster and Partners, one of the world's most prestigious architecture firms, Masdar was a $22 billion statement of intent. Proof that humanity could live sustainably, even in the harshest environment on Earth. Every inch of Masdar was planned. Buildings were angled to catch desert winds for natural cooling. Narrow streets created shade, and solar panels stretched endlessly across the rooftops. Instead of cars, a futuristic personal rapid transit system would carry people around in driverless electric pods beneath the city. It sounded like science fiction, but the future was made real. The first residents moved in around 2010, but by then, the weaknesses were already showing. The solar system underperformed in the region's brutal heat. Costs skyrocketed, and only a tiny section of the driverless pod network was ever built as the rest were replaced by diesel buses. By the mid-2010s, Masdar's ambitious carbon-neutral goal was quietly abandoned. What was supposed to be a city of 50,000 people became a small campus for around 1,500, mostly researchers and students. A few offices opened, a few labs operated, but the dream of a thriving eco-metropolis? It faded under the desert sun. Masdar became a monument to good intentions and bad execution, a city designed for an ideal world that doesn't exist. The irony of Masdar City is that it's surrounded by Abu Dhabi, a city built on oil wealth. The very industry funding the zero-carbon city was also the one it was trying to transcend. People argued Masdar was never really meant to be a model for sustainable living, but a brand statement, a way for the UAE to showcase green innovation without fundamentally changing its economy. Even its architecture felt disconnected from local life. Where traditional Arab cities evolved around courtyards, markets, and human scale, Masdar's perfection felt theatrical, like a movie set designed to look sustainable. Even though the world praised its ambition, that alone doesn't make a city thrive. The people designing these cities wanted control. Control over layout, movement, energy, and even behavior. But cities aren't machines, and people crave meaning, not efficiency. They form attachments to neighborhoods, not networks. They value character. A slightly crooked street with a local bakery at the corner will feel more alive than a sterile boulevard lined with identical towers. Planned cities try to eliminate discomfort, but in doing so, they eliminate discovery. Think about your favorite city moments: a random conversation with a stranger, a hidden restaurant you stumble upon, the sound of street music drifting from somewhere unseen. You can't plan those things. They happen because the city isn't perfect, and that's what the smart cities of the world haven't figured out. A perfect system can't replace the messy, unpredictable rhythm of human life. Every era believes it can optimize humanity, In the 1950s, modernists thought architecture could create equality. In the 2000s, tech companies thought data could create happiness. But cities aren't problems to be solved. They're relationships to be nurtured, and like any relationship, they thrive on flexibility. When you build a city to be efficient, you forget that inefficiency in small doses is what gives cities texture and character. A little traffic, a little noise, and a little unpredictability. Those are signs of life, not failure. Songdo and Masdar tried to eliminate friction and ended up eliminating fun. When you remove chaos from a city, you remove its potential for surprise. In the favelas of Rio or the backstreets of Tokyo, life spills into every corner. That's what's missing in perfect cities. No amount of technology can simulate the feeling of belonging that comes from participating in your environment, shaping it, bending it, and leaving your mark on it. In Masdar and Songdo, the city doesn't adapt to people. People have to adapt to the city, and that's when the dream starts to die. However, not every city fails. Some have figured out that imperfection is the secret ingredient to greatness. Tokyo, for example, is a paradox that is endlessly dense yet astonishingly humane. Its urban form evolved from centuries of rebuilding, compromise, and adaptation. Narrow alleys, tiny bars, endless variety. No single architect planned it. It grew like a living thing, layer upon layer, mistake upon mistake, until it became one of the most livable cities on Earth. Copenhagen took the opposite approach, with deliberate design, but always with human beings in mind. It's a city that put people before cars, turning streets into spaces for cyclists and pedestrians long before it was trendy. And Barcelona shows how an old city can adapt gracefully, evolving its grid with modern innovations like the superblocks, reducing traffic while keeping the street life vibrant. These cities work not because they interact with the people. They change when people demand it, and they evolve. Meanwhile, most cities built to be perfect start dying the moment they're finished. This is because real cities never finish. They change, adapt, and absorb the chaos of human life. That's what keeps them relevant. When planners freeze a city in time and then decide this is how people will live, they kill its potential to evolve. You can build stunning buildings, but you can't design belonging. That comes from shared history, memory, and identity. For instance, Brasília had modernist monuments, but no collective memory. Songdo had smart sensors, but no social glove. Masdar had technology, but no tradition. Without culture, architecture becomes scenery. The future of urbanism isn't about architects dictating from above, but about collaboration from below. Community input, local adaptation, and constant feedback loops make cities better. That's what makes cities like Copenhagen and Medellin thrive, because they involve people in the process. A city built with its citizens will always outlive one built for them. The irony of these failed utopias is that they still matter. Songdo's digital infrastructure inspired real improvements in waste management and energy tracking. Masdar's experiments with passive cooling and renewable grids influenced sustainable design worldwide. Even if they failed as cities, they succeeded as lessons. The next generation of urban planners is beginning to understand that perfection isn't the goal, but adaptability is. Cities that survive the 21st century will be those that can bend, not those that try to be flawless. Maybe the real perfect city isn't a place at all. Maybe it's a process with a living story that never stops changing. Because the cities that last aren't the ones we designed to be perfect. They're the ones we allow to be alive.